at the time, so I was carrying some extra weight, and so really felt like it was going to be impossible to get to the top of that peak because I was wheezing and sweaty. And I mean, it was Arizona. It was during the fall, but it was still really hot. And I think that really it was the pain. It was the pain of a potential failure that really drove me to get to the top. And I mean, I was super tired, super out of breath. And at that point, I had made the decision that I was going to get to the top. It didn't matter how long it took. It's one foot after another. And if I had to crawl to the top of that peak, I would crawl to it. And so I made it to the top. And when I made it to the top, it just seemed like everything ahead of me seemed like it was going to be possible.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. You know, I live by the mentality. I'm an extreme sport athlete. And in the sports that I've done in the last 15, 20 years, there are activities that you can die in. And I always feel like, you know, what's the worst that's going to happen in work? You know, I'm not going to die from making a bad decision in the corporate office, you know, which I encounter in my hobbies. So I always kind of use that mentality. It's similar to, you know, if you can make it to the top of that peak and suffer through it, you know that you're capable of much more than what you give yourself credit for, as you have there. So thanks for sharing that transition, because I think it's important that people overcome some of their challenges. So you talk about you found success in the entertainment business. I would love to hear what that looks like and, you know, what that was about.
Well, I mean, I started in radio, so I was working, you know, I was working for a group of radio stations, and then I ended up moving to LA and then running an entire group of radio stations. And there was a lot of like acquisitions and mergers going on at that time. So I found myself working for a company called Clear Channel, and Clear Channel was like a conglomeration of television stations, outdoor, and then venues for events. I mean, we produced at the time 60,000 live events per year.
Wow.
So that's kind of my entry point into the entertainment industry. So I had the luxury of being able to work with a lot of artists. And then 9/11 happened, and everybody stopped going to concerts and gathering in groups for a period of time. There was massive layoffs. At that point, I exited, you know, Clear Channel and started my own business where I weaved, you know, the entertainment experience into a brand. So it was experiential marketing, and that was how that sort of was the springboard into the entertainment industry, that I ended up making a couple films and having a TV show that was on UPN, which is no longer around. But I was able to, you know, to sort of leverage those connections and experience into, you know, launching some record labels, which were pretty successful, and then just decided I didn't want to do the entertainment industry anymore.
You have a lot of yeses in that last minute of your career. It's fascinating how many arenas within the entertainment business you bounced around to, because oftentimes people get stuck in a silo in entertainment because that's the only thing that they're good at. But clearly you progressed through several. How do you, you know, from an informational purpose, if somebody's listening that wants to be in entertainment on the side that you're talking about, I mean, how do you bounce around, or how do you figure out that you can translate into another arena? Or did it just happen organically because you were there and you saw an opportunity?
I think that it helped that I was there. I mean, if you want to, you know, be in the entertainment industry, I think you pretty much have to be in Los Angeles or New York in order to be, you know, successful in sort of the conventional sense. I mean, there are a lot of people, you know, that produce videos for YouTube that don't live in LA or New York. And I think that they're a huge success. But from my perspective and in the time that I was involved, you had to actually be there. And I think that the real key to being successful in any business, but particularly the entertainment industry, is always come from a space of contribution. meaning always look for ways that you can add value to a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's an excellent springboard to any success in any industry.
I think you're right. That's a great piece of advice that is often overlooked because we're so busy thinking about what we can get from the situation as opposed to what we can give to it.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge failure with people is, and I notice that even, with my company now in hiring people, like we have them go through a pretty stringent sort of personality test to see how important contribution and growth are to them. And really, if you're coming from a space of this is all about me and what can I get out of the situation, people are going to be repelled by that, because people aren't looking to give to you. People are looking for, what you can bring to the table, or what value or what contribution that you have to put in. And I think coming from that space is really, that's the key to success. If you've got your hand out all the time, chances are it's not going to get filled.
And I would imagine in the entertainment business, because of some of the personalities, if you will, that people think highly of themselves, that there's probably a lot of people taking. So somebody that's willing to give or add value probably stands out amongst the clutter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's completely true. When, it was dicey, being involved in the entertainment industry, because, I was involved with a lot of celebrities and mostly their management. And they're all about having their hand out. Like, what are you going to give us and what's in it for us? And, you can play in that world, but I don't think that it's sustainable in a lot of ways. I think that that you're not going to be able to create a legacy out of it. Like if you come from a space of contribution, legacy is the return you're going to get. If you come from a space of this is all about me, gimme, that, you're not really going to be able to launch long-term legacy out of that mindset.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of legacy and long term, you obviously got out of the entertainment business. What transitioned you out, and where did you go from there?
Well, that's a really good question. I really just got pretty burned out on a lot of the various personalities, as you said. It just stopped being fun for me, and I felt like, my time in that industry had sort of come to an end because I didn't feel like it was a positive contribution. And so I've always been very interested in health and wellness. And, that's when the idea of actually, launching a company, my first company, Stu Viva Brands, that was the focal point was stevia extract and sweeteners that people could have that would actually be a healthy alternative to sugar and aspartame and sucralose. So that felt right to me. It also felt like it was contributing, and it also felt like there could be a potential legacy I could build on that. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that company because, what you've managed to do there and what you've built, I think it's, incredible, especially the value that you just mentioned. How did that come to be, and how did you, get as big as you are today and, make the impact that you are?
Well, with the sweeteners, that's always been kind of a side hustle for me. So when I used to live in Arizona, I ran into a gentleman whose name was Jim May, and he really, he traveled the world looking for different types of herbs, that had sort of healing qualities to them. And, I think we developed a friendship, and he showed me these leaves that he'd brought back from Paraguay. And, he's like, try these. And I was like, whoa, that's super sweet. And so they were stevia leaves. And at that point, like a light bulb went off. for me. And I was like, wow, I wonder if there was a way to extract those sweet constituents from that leaf and turn it into like maybe a natural version of aspartame or sucralose. And that's when my sort of journey began, where I found companies that would be able to extract those sweet constituents using a pure water process. So it took me probably 4 years to be able to find that. But then, it was just a process of sticking with it. I mean, my first brand was called Stu Viva Brands, and literally was run out of my garage. And I would go to grocery stores, doing demos myself. So I started at the basis, the ground up. And my intention was to actually create a consumer brand and then be able to parlay that consumer brand equity into an ingredient company. And so in 2008, the FDA allowed stevia to be used as a food ingredient and labeled it as generally regarded as safe. So that was really, really what propelled us into food ingredient at that point in time. So now my food ingredient company is called Icon Foods, and we're probably one of the biggest supplier of clean label sweeteners, meaning that they're all natural. So natural sweeteners and food ingredients to sports nutrition companies and companies that are just, looking to cut back on added sugars.
So I'm almost at a loss of words from the last description of your company. And here's the reason why. We talked about your success and pathway through the entertainment business, but I got to tell you, from a listener standpoint, you were lit on fire when you started to talk about this brand and the execution and your labs and testing and all that stuff. Even though it might have been a side hustle at some point and you had, some learnings then, so it wasn't such a huge jump when you decided to do this. I just find it fascinating that you moved from an entertainment job into a production consumer good product, and you've achieved this level of success. I mean, did you anticipate that? Was that part of your business plan when you jumped all in on this? Did you know you were going to knock competitors off the block?
I didn't. I mean, I've always been, I guess, like I journal every day. So, and I've written my goals down since, the late 80s. So, I mean, I'm really good about creating action plans with my goals. And so, I mean, I did have a goal in mind of, being able to build this business. And, it even though you write it down, I think that there's still a certain level of imposter sort of syndrome where it's like, yeah, that's possible for other people, but not for me. And you just have to push back on that, and you have to ignore it. Like, I don't find myself to be particularly, smart. I don't think I'm any smarter than anybody else, but I do have the drive, and I never quit. So if I find something that I believe in, and I mean, with the natural sweetening compounds that we sell, I mean, this is something that comes from a space of contribution, meaning it makes the world a better place. It has potential legacy, and once I sunk my hooks into that, it really, it created the level of passion, like I really believe in what I'm doing with the entertainment industry. I mean, it was glitzy and glamorous, but it never once did I feel like I'm making a difference in the world. And, until I got into the natural foods category, and it's like, yeah, this can make a real impact on people's lives. So that's the thing that really drives me. It's the thing that gets me up at 4:30 in the morning and, and working until 7:00 at night. That's the thing that really was the catalyst for lighting myself on fire.
Yeah.
And then just inviting people to come watch me burn.
Yeah. I think you just answered the question I was going to ask you, but you said you never quit, you never give up, you want to work hard. And I was going to ask you to describe that. Is in your mind, is that getting up at 4:30, getting to work, and ending your day at 7 or whenever the job's done, or does it consist of just more than that? Because I think a lot of people